Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jim Patterson. Jim will be today's presenter and will discuss the topic of exploring the future of Project Online with Project for the Web and OnePlan. This webinar is a new addition to our series of adaptive webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others we have available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. This topic today that we're going to cover, exploring the future of Project Online with Project for the Web and OnePlan, is really about an exciting time and an era of transition with Microsoft's offering in the area of project and portfolio management, and how OnePlan is aligned with that vision to provide the utmost in capabilities to the customer. So with that, let's just get started. Now, Microsoft's vision is why things are changing away from the traditional Project Online that they've had out there for quite some time for project and portfolio management, and even the Microsoft Project Professional on the desktop that people have used over the years. There's a modern work management vision that Microsoft has, that teams should be able to work the way that they want with the methodologies and the tools that make the most sense for them, and also to have executives get the results that they need, meaning even though teams are doing things in a variety of ways, potentially with different methodologies based on different types of work, executives still need to have the visibility for decision making that they need. Now, Microsoft Project, it empowers companies to achieve better results, by building projects and resources and trying to align with the things that we're doing correctly. But more importantly, in this day and age, in this kind of app culture with younger workers, for example, this whole concept of intuitive and easy to get started tools is paramount so that we can become effective quickly, especially when people are dealing with projects that they have to manage, maybe even sporadically. So let's talk about what that means a little bit. In bridging this work management gap and trying to get to this new world, in this day and age, we all manage projects, but we're not all trained to do so. Not everybody is a classically PMI, Project Management Institute trained person or certified person in managing projects. Some of us are engineers, we're in other parts of the business, and we get dubbed to manage projects from time to time, and we're not classically trained to do so. We also believe that collaboration is critical. So more so than just building schedules these days, collaboration is part of the way we do work today. In this more social aspect, the way we do things in software is more that way as well today. But today, work is chaotic and it's happening everywhere, especially as we're more geographically dispersed, more people are working remote. Work is happening everywhere and sometimes not in a very connected way. And we want to manage work our way. So for example, there's traditional waterfall, there's agile, there's even within agile, there's different variations and some hybrids thereof. And our legacy tools that we have in hand sometimes don't allow us to do the work the way exactly we'd like to do. So we need more flexibility in the way to do that. And consequently, in this age of cloud tools, people are out there getting access to things from the cloud that they may not have had access to before, and they're choosing their own tools. And because of this, we end up with a proliferation of tools across an organization to try and fill these needs, and more of some shadow IT that's going on. So we want to use our data effectively, but it's a mess because of all this proliferation of tools, and data is siloed and in segments all across the organization. And then we have to manually find ways to mash that up and create reports and meaningful information out of that. And we need to make better decisions, and no one really has the big picture because this manual effort often happens, and by the time that all gets put together, the data may already be out of date, and no one maybe has the current big picture to get that right lens on things for right decision making and for corrective actions. Now, Microsoft future vision, they've alluded to it for quite some time. Even in the fall of 2019, they announced the plan to reimagine Project and saying that they were going to stop investing development in Project Online. And their vision moving forward is to provide project and portfolio capabilities leveraging the Microsoft 365 platform. The date for transitions and where something might end for Project Online has not been announced yet, but they strongly encouraged in a blog back some time is that people should start planning to make that move into that new project for the web realm and that new reimagined version of project that they've released and continue to enhance. So what is that? Well, it really is a simple and powerful project management solution that's designed to hit a broader audience and really be for everyone to hit some of those criteria we talked about earlier on. It's really providing a web-based, easy to get started, easy to use type of interface where even the casual or the occasional project manager can actually be effective. On this animated screen, you're seeing traditional Gantt and timelines up here that people can work with as they're used to. You might be working with things in a board like you would do, say, in Planner, for more of a Kanban style interaction for the people that want to work with their projects and their tasks in that fashion. And even a strict grid that's more like working like a spreadsheet in working with those things, or different modes that you can work with the same data. So just an example of some of the flexibility and ease that's in here. Now, ultimately, it's designed to create a fresh new experience, a more modern experience than, say, Project Desktop or Project Professional had. Collaboration is made more easy. We'll talk about its use of teams and the fact that there's things like co-authoring available, like you have in things like Word and Excel, for example, so people can simultaneously collaborate on the same plans. And it's all built on a platform that gives easy access to that information. And even as we get in this age of AI, maybe some more innovative type of planning. Now, so if we think about Project for the Web, it really is that project execution piece at its core. That grid view that we talked about that allow people to work with and build their project plans in kind of more like a spreadsheet table type of format. There's more of that board mode where people can work and plan in more of a Kanban style with different perspectives and different views and slices on that. And then the traditional timeline view, which is more of that familiar old Gantt chart capability that we're used to seeing. All this is available within Project for the Web, and the focus here really is on building plans, putting tasks in place, assigning people those things, and doing execution. It also addresses the collaborative mode, not only with the co-authoring within Project for the Web itself, but also because it is a Teams application that allows us to add Project for the Web to any team and combine it in that team with the things that we might also do about project management collaboratively, whether it be our posts, whether it be the files or content that we need, or maybe even adding other tabs or tools to help complement the other things that we need to do around project management, all in one hub to allow us to have easy access and be more efficient about managing our projects from all those dimensions. However, if you speak to the analysts like the Gartner Group, there are critical capabilities for project and portfolio management that may not be addressed just by Project for the Web, say with the collaborative nature of teams. You know, the things that you see in here like demand management and intake, you know, time management for things like timesheets that people might require, maybe detailed financial management or financial tracking and budgets, maybe resource capacity planning from a very detailed time phase basis, or maybe even advancing the project portfolio management realm where the things like, you know, what if analysis and scenario modeling might be needed. And even things like, you know, overall integration with maybe more tools than just Project for the Web and Teams, for example. Those are the types of things that might need to be enhanced by the Project for the Web offering. Hence, this is where OnePlan comes in. OnePlan helps create a comprehensive solution for the Microsoft Cloud in this area. It really is designed to connect all the way from the strategic level all the way down to execution. In this graphic that you see here, for example, OnePlan is providing flexible and robust portfolio management capabilities, but leveraging the execution data that's coming from a variety of Project for the Web plans that may be being built across the organization. On top of that, not only does that portfolio capability then extend what Project for the Web gives you natively, it also gives us the ability to link to strategies. And in this day of strategic portfolio management and the proliferation of organizations and executives using more OKRs or objectives and key results, those strategies can be derived from Microsoft's relatively new offering in Viva Goals, and or it could be synced or created with the OKR capability right within OnePlan. Ultimately, what you'll have is a comprehensive solution that meets your needs from strategy and executing that strategy to aligning that strategy with your portfolios and the plans that you're executing on to support achieving those portfolio items which support the strategies. Now, what does OnePlan add as far as capabilities to the mix specifically? It adds portfolio management from a flexible perspective. You can structure your portfolios any way you like, categorizing and classifying your data around those and categorizing your projects any way you like, and be able to look at them in different hierarchies, whether they be in a list view like you're looking at here, whether it be more portfolio level Kanban boards to look at this from a more agile perspective as people maybe do more planning, in maybe more program increment planning in the agile shops, and even roadmap views for the more product oriented folks who want to look at things in the streams of how things are going to be delivered across a product roadmap. These things are all available by working with the data and looking at the data, the same data, but from these different perspectives, all in one tool, and have to be natural outputs of the process, let alone the what if modeling scenarios, stuff that we'll talk about a little bit later. Resource capacity planning is big. One of the bigger pain points that people come to us for that we talk to out there is that, yes, we're executing on project plans, but maybe we're committing to things without fully realizing, do we have the capacity or the bandwidth to actually succeed at what we're committing to? And the idea of being able to put capacity plans in, whether they be more top-down plans, saying I need such and such headcounts by certain types of resources or specific individuals across periods of time, or maybe more bottoms-up resource planning, that is the actual schedules and the work plans that are rolling up from those detailed task resource assignments, and seeing what the aggregation of that looks like. What loads are we putting on from the bottom up? And even comparing those things from the top down and the bottom up, should an organization want to do that. Very flexible resource planning added to the mix. And then the financial planning, being able to look at the costing around those resources, automatically being pulled in via the rates on those resources, and other non-labor types of costs that you might want to track on a time phase basis. Things like your contracting, your hardware, your software, travel expenses, whatever they might be, and be able to factor that into the overall portfolio management realm. And then on the execution side, Project for the Web handles execution from a scheduling perspective, but OnePlan has a place or a home for that data should we synchronize that and want to roll it up to this full portfolio management capabilities. OnePlan has a more agile work planning mode that allows you to bring in more of that, the waterfall work planning mode that allows you to bring in your Gantt charts and those types of schedules from Project for the Web in a way that lets you roll that up and have visibility in here in the context of the entire portfolio. If you have agile plans and backlogs, you could actually build them in here and actually look at them from a more agile perspective and roll those up as well. The idea being here is that if you have all of your data coalescing and converging into one place, things like status reporting becomes universally a more natural output of the process, and also the visibility becomes a byproduct at the portfolio levels from this work execution plans. Now, we have out-of-the-box connectors for Project for the Web, as you see here on the left, or even Planner if people are using some of that type of thing, or Microsoft Project. And on the Agile side of things, if people are using things like Azure DevOps, that data can be brought in as well from an Agile perspective to bring together into a common portfolio. Now, the team members and the resources that get assigned work are not forgotten in this mix either. We have a My Work area that allows an individual user to come in and see everything that's been put on their plate across however many different projects or project types or methodologies that are being used. They can update things like backlog items and tasks, etc., all in here in one place, and actually have a timesheet available to them should you want to capture time. And organizations that are doing things like capitalization of labor, whether they're doing chargebacks internally or whether they're billing things out to external customers, the timesheet is a piece that is added and is a part of the core OnePlan capabilities. And then home pages like this Insights AI, where an individual user can get their attention called to things that might be falling off track that require their attention. Conversation threads on projects and tasks that they're on, and easy access to the plans that they're part of. These are all things that OnePlan adds to the value of the easy to create and powerful schedules that can be built right within Project for the Web. Now, this is done through pre-built connectors, and OnePlan's integrations factor into things like Project for the Web. so that there's a pre-built connector that'll automatically synchronize that data without the end user having to worry about doing any of that synchronization. Same thing holds true in the Microsoft realm with, say, Azure DevOps. The same thing could hold true for things like financial planning or service management or your CRM system, for example. So the idea here is these out-of-the-box integrations, and we're focusing on Project for the Web today, are something that comes with the OnePlan offering. Now, in this day and age, we talk about, portfolio visibility like we've been talking about up till now here in this presentation, but the analysts like Gartner and Forrester say that the needs of the digital age move more towards what's being called strategic portfolio management, or the acronym being SPM. And in that, it has to be more than just aligning, say, your schedules with your portfolio and having portfolio level information. To originally make decisions like what are the right things that we should be working on, what should take precedence or priority over other things, requires some alignment with strategy. So you might just align your projects with different strategic objectives, for example, or key results that your senior leadership has laid out, and making sure that what you're working on is helping support achieving those or aligning with those things. And these business objectives would have to be captured or created and tracked. So for example, a business objective by leadership might be to grow revenue by 15%. There might be tangible then key results, measurable key results, that's saying, are we achieving these things that will give us indication that we are going to achieve that overall business objective of grow revenue by 15%. Now, on top of that, you might then align your projects and your plans in your execution portfolio with these to make sure that we're working on the right things that leadership wants us to work on. But for success, or maybe even to factor in the things that we also may need to do in order to achieve these objectives, we might want to align things with a business capability. And from an enterprise architecture perspective, an organization may have a whole roster or portfolio of business capabilities that they are tracking and aligning with. So for example, order processing may be a business capability that would have to be factored in, addressed, or maybe even modernized to support the growing revenue by 15%. On top of that, there are specific applications or technologies that may be enabling there to also be a success factor, and we can't ignore those things if we want a success at the overall business objective or key results, or improve that business capability. So for example, an application like an ordering system or a picking system might have to be factored in our decision making and in the overall execution of achieving this objective. Then ultimately, there's going to be initiatives that is the work that actually has to be done in order to address all these aspects. And those things would be aligned with the objectives and the key results, and potentially the capabilities and the applications themselves. Now, this is a relatively mature concept. Not all organizations are ready to take on this entire scheme, but the combination of the Microsoft technologies and OnePlan gives us a path forward to be able to grow and mature into these to the degree that we want to as an organization. So for example, one comprehensive solution, organizations in the Microsoft world may choose to use the new Viva goals to capture their OKRs, for example, and their objectives and key results. They may also then synchronize those with OnePlan from those portfolio management capabilities and make those strategies and key results, objectives and key results, available for alignment to the other portfolio management aspects. To that end, OnePlan also allows you to house an inventory of portfolios of your enterprise architecture elements, like the business capabilities, the applications, the products, etc. And then ultimately, it's also managing and aligning with a project portfolio that then can actually be aligned with the prior to the enterprise architecture elements, as well as the objectives and the key results in the strategic plan. Now, as this might sound more complex in the interactions and the relationships and the associations that are there, we visualize those things in OnePlan by being able to help you look graphically at the interrelations here by having runways and dependency diagrams to show how these things are interrelated, so that when we make decisions, we can not overlook or not factor in the things we must as we prioritize, as we select, and even as we execute and see what might be at risk. So these types of interrelationships are something that are a natural output of the process. And also, in this fast-moving world, things change constantly. And once we arrive at a portfolio, whether we're doing annual planning or quarterly re-racks on our plans, the need comes as changes come in and the situation changes in the field or in the market, we have to potentially evaluate all alternatives. What new initiatives or plans should we be considering? Which ones are not doing well that we might consider suspending or canceling? Which ones might we want to add into the mix there? The idea here is to be able to provide scenario modeling in a what-if mode to be able to look at different constraints, different selections of projects and plans, and figuring out what our best alternatives are for paths forward. And OnePlan provides the capability to do that. So in this OnePlan scenario modeling, we could look at financial constraints and see if the plans that we're considering doing fit within the overall budgets that we have in those constraints. We could be looking at it from a resource constraint perspective and say, out of this particular model of potential projects that we'd like to do, is the selection of those and the timing at which we intend to do those, do they fit within our overall resource capacity or not? And then be able to do a variety of different iterations or models or different scenarios and be able to compare those and look and see which might be the best alternative as we look at the comparison between the different models we may have created. So to recap a little bit, the OnePlan platform here as a complete strategic portfolio management scenario and capability for customers by leveraging, say, Microsoft Project for the Web. That'll build project schedules, assign resources to tasks, create dependencies, make project-specific reports available, and do it in a way that's easy for users to get started and have accessible to, whether they're seasoned project managers or maybe that occasional project manager. It also provides a nice report pack in Power BI for reports and dashboards on those types of things. But for the overall portfolio management capabilities, especially the strategic portfolio management capability, you might use a Viva goal, say, for a strategic plan for OKRs. And you might synchronize it, or you might even build it in OnePlan so that the strategic piece is there so that we can have right alignment of working on the right things. But then all the other capabilities I showed you in the OnePlan capability place gives you a platform for things like project intake and requests, program management, advanced prioritization and what-if scenario modeling. I talked about the detailed financials and the capacity planning. I also talked about, well, we didn't really talk about things like issues and risks and change requests and the status reports, which we did say is a natural output of the process. And then for the team members, that my work and or that timesheet piece are key to what we might want to do here. So ultimately, the combination of Project for the Web with OnePlan will give you a robust portfolio management set of capabilities that you could leverage as much of this as you feel that you're ready to do. In addition to that, OnePlan is designed so that you can use it in a browser, just simply in your favorite browser. But the reality is, people are working in different environments and different tools in the Microsoft ecosystem. And we have a strategy here where we can fuse OnePlan into the tools that you are working into every day to have a cohesive user experience. For example, Project for the Web, there are templates in Power Apps to allow you to use Project for the Web in the context of a Power App. Well, OnePlan has been designed to be surfaced right within that Power Apps context so that the use of Project for the Web in Power Apps, for example, OnePlan capabilities can be used right within Power Apps as you're working with every other aspect of what you may have generated in Power Apps. OnePlan is also an authorized Microsoft Teams application, just like Project for the Web is, so that we can access all those capabilities in any team or channel or in Teams in general that we would want to for that overall collaborative experience. We talked about how OnePlan interacts and shares data with Azure DevOps, but those Agile folks that might be working in Azure DevOps exclusively on Agile type of efforts can access the OnePlan capabilities right from within their use of Azure DevOps without having to leave Azure DevOps. So I think you're getting the theme, this fused experiences to allow users to work in the tools that they're working in every day. We have the same type of use case within Dynamics and within SharePoint as well. So with that, I'd like to start and demonstrate some of the things that we've been talking about conceptually. So if we think about Project for the Web as its own tool here, and its ability to do those easy things that we talked about on the execution side of things. You know, Microsoft Project offers you a project homepage that, much like the backstage in any Office application, allows you to access to, say, your most recent things that you were in, favoriting things, and and that type of thing. And but part of my point here today is about how easy it is to get started. Once you've been given access to Project for the Web, creating a new project is as simple as creating a new project, and you can use a variety of templates that are here. You could import projects that are already in Microsoft Project, etc. But if I was going to do something like even create a blank project, it's as simple as saying, here's a new project. It's kind of a blank canvas, but it allows me to just go in and click on the project and name it. And I'll just call it, webinar. Webinar 27 April. And I'll make sure that this fictional login that I'm in as Daniel Williams is the project manager. And I'll just make sure that Daniel is the person that we make available to do that. You can give it a start date you want to anticipate starting that. If you have a roster of calendars that you've created, you can use templates for those and the default work week, etc. But getting it started and giving it a name is as simple as doing this. Now, the ability to put fields in here, and I'm defaulted to what we talked about as a grid view. I could come in here and add columns to this. So for example, I could say, let me add a start date to this view, and let me add a finish date to this view, and maybe let me add a let me leave it at that for now. And then putting tasks in here might be as simple as saying, all right, let me put in phase 1, and then let me say in that phase I'm going to have task 1-1, task 1-2, etc. I might even say, let's say that was the end of the project, I'll say project complete. And the idea here is that you can quickly build these things, and you can even build your hierarchy here, where, for example, I could say, let me select these 2 tasks, and let me say I want to make these subtasks of the overall project, and I can start indenting and outdenting tasks and do those types of things. I can even just simply say, what's the duration of these tasks? And I can come in and say, let's just say 5 days. And then I can come in here and say this next one is 10 days, etc. And it's automatically putting those days in here. And I can actually assign resources based on the groups or the teams I have. Like right now, Daniel Williams is the only one I have in here, but I can assign Daniel to these tasks and put him on there and tag him as the person that's going to work on those things. What's nice about this, you can actually create a new group of resources that you'd like for this project specifically, or you can add this to an existing group. So if you have existing groups for teams or projects in there, you can select a different group of people and you can add them to the mix and see those fit and make those available. Or as you're assigning resources, you can search for other resources that might be available for you to put in the mix here. So once again, very easy to do, as well as doing things like doing dependencies. I could do this either here by selecting 2 tasks and saying I want to add a dependency here across those 2 tasks, or it might be easier for me to show me doing that in a timeline view. Once again, there's a board view that works you with a card, a timeline view that allows me to do those things, but I might be even do something graphically here. Like I say, I want to basically make that a dependency, and maybe I want to take this project complete and make that a dependency to that as well. So once again, very simple, easy ways to get started that didn't take really any training at all to get effective with that. Now, instead of having you watch me do data entry this entire webinar, I thought I'd open up a plan that's more fully built out and just show you a couple more things. First off, as we go through this plan, there's the idea of being able to just check off and complete tasks simply with a checking of a radio button here, and being able to look at what's been completed, highlighting maybe what's delayed or what's behind or what's late. Easy looking at who's assigned to what and what things are dependent on and how much effort hours we've assigned to these things. And there's even a capability to do things like labels, as we call them, such that we can label these things by different colors and different categories if we want to have substratas and different overlays, different than just the work breakdown structure hierarchy that we've created. So the idea here is we have a plan here that's got a lot of robustness to it. On the board side of things, we can come in here and look at that in a different way. Like, for example, I've got this group by the labels that we've created. And the labels here are used by, which elements of our project team are doing this work, like development team or the design team. I could look at this by different buckets if I wanted to, break this into the types of work that's being done. And you can decide what those buckets are. I could quickly do this in a slice by saying, all right, who's assigned to what, and just really look at the cards on the things that Daniel's on and take a look at what might be behind by each resource, as well as where things are from a progress perspective or where things are at from a priority perspective, etc. So once again, flexible boards that we can work with, very much like Planner, but unlike Planner, there's dependencies behind here, like true precedence logic and those types of things, and resource quantifications and estimates, not just the tagging of a name of a person to that. And the timeline is just easy to view here because you can go look at an overall timeline and take a look at this from a Gantt chart and work with it in that perspective, where we can extend and drag out tests to extend them. We can build the dependencies as I showed you, etc. And like Planner, there's charts in here that give you some good metrics that you might want to have regarding this specific plan. Now, once again, this is not portfolio level data. It's specific to this plan, as well as people data that might be, how things are doing on incomplete or late tasks by individual, or even take it a little further and look at, for this particular project, what's the time phasing of the assignments in here? And for example, Daniel Williams, what's the timing of the effort and hours of what he's assigned to that I can look at within this particular project? So once again, these are things that we can do very quickly and very easily in Project for the Web on a project by project basis. Now, because it is a Teams app, let me go over here to Teams really quickly. And let's take a look at a team that was created here, where, as usual, you can see the different posts that are available to you in the conversation threads that we have here. And in this case, I'm even showing some workflow approvals for things that are using the simple approvals capability within Teams that allow us to approve certain things that we're doing. The files and the content in here, we have a content library that has documents that would be related to this specific team or project that we can look at any given point in time, as well as, say, for example, wikis, which are a default in many of the templates in Teams that allow us to manage those streams of data that we want to have and capture. Now, project is then put into the context of this. So the schedule that we're working with is only one dimension, right? We have the conversations, we have the content, we now have a schedule that's appropriate in here that we're working with, and working with in all its different modes, its board, its timeline, its view, and all that type of stuff. And so we can work through that. We could also have the project reports made available to us here. So we mentioned that there's a Power BI report pack that can get you information that you want. And so, for example, that Power BI report pack for Project for the Web can be made available here such that we can access that at any given point in time and look at the different information and reports that we want to there. And even things like adding a OneNote notebook as we want to capture project status notes and those types of things, all in this one hub. But notice now that the Project for the Web schedule is only one portion of what we're doing here collaboratively. Now, I would say at this point that other apps are available to us there. And as we go to add different tabs into a team, you can basically see that other things are available. And you can see here that OnePlan and Project are both available as applications that are available to be added to your teams and your channels. So you could actually use that at any given point in time. So for example, as we talk about the capabilities of OnePlan, and I'll just flash it out here initially, is that we can actually make OnePlan available to us at any given point in time by adding it to a team. For example, you could add it to a team here, or you could add it into teams in the left navigation rail overall. So instead of looking at it in the context of an individual team, I could come in here and look at it in a from a specific. I have a number of different OnePlan groups, as we call them, available, but I can access it in general here as long as I have permissions and access to get to it. So as I'm looking at OnePlan within here in Teams, you'll notice that I've added portfolio level capabilities in here where I've got a list of portfolio of all these different projects with different views. In this case, it's a KPI oriented view, but I can have all different types of views, whether they be financial or effort or whatever. But notice that they're all tied to an individual Project for the Web plan that's rolling up here to a portfolio level set of information. So for example, here, if I went in and said, let me look at an overall, financial summary of how we're doing on this rather than just a general KPI view. I can come in here and look at my projects and see how we're doing with the dollars. If I drill into a specific plan, the dimensions that are added beyond just the schedule level data are things like the project details, where we can come in and all the metadata and data we want to capture around a project can be captured at that portfolio level over and above what you would capture in the project for the web plan itself, including the overall life cycle of the project. We might want to capture a resource plan that allows us to look at this from a perspective of what resources are required in here. And we can plan in terms of hours or percentages of effort or FTEs if we want to. We can even go in and then derive financials from those resource plan by the cost of the resources, and even capture costs of other non-labor costs in here as we go through this and capture that fully. And then the work plan that we talked about from Project for the Web is synchronized here with OnePlan so it can roll up to the rest of the portfolio. So these items here were actually derived from a connection that's actively linked between Project for the Web and OnePlan. So for example, you don't have to synchronize. You can manually import the data, say for example, from from Project for the Web, but our OneConnect platform for OnePlan automatically synchronizes that periodically so that the end user doesn't have to remember to do that, and it takes care of that all automatically for you. So once again, these are things that you can do. Now, other things that can be done, and we mentioned and we alluded to, say, Viva goals, where OKRs can be done right here within this mix. We can basically come in here and say, from a Daniel Williams perspective, here are some OKRs and objectives and key results that have been created that we can actually look at and see the metrics and status on them right here within Viva goals. But that being said, if we want to align those with other portfolio management dimensions, which we talked about being in OnePlan, that synchronization will actually happen with this data such that as we go over to, say, OnePlan. And this time I'll go to OnePlan directly in a browser to just show you that it can be used either in Teams or directly within a browser. I can come in here and actually work with it in that context. So here's OnePlan with a similar portfolio, but if you'll notice in this portfolio, I've got a number of other icons other than just Project and Project for the Web. I've got connections to Teams, I got connections to Azure DevOps, et cetera. I got connections to Planner, meaning you have other Microsoft tools that you can link to have those be the execution tools that feed into the portfolio. Now, because we left off with Viva goals, let's go into the My Strategy area over in OnePlan, and you'll see that the same OKRs that we had over in Viva goals are synchronized here. And because of the fact that they're synchronized here, we can now use them in a variety of other ways such that we can actually associate them and align them with other parts of our portfolio management process. For example, if I drill into this key result for this objective, I can see not only the data around that some of it may have come from Viva goals, but for example, I can now align it with things like ideas or requests that I have within the portfolio management system. I can align it with projects and epics that I'm tracking within the OnePlan portfolio. I can align it with products and or applications like we talked about in that association from a strategic portfolio management perspective. We can do all that right from within here. So, this is something that we take it to the next level by supporting what's being done in the Microsoft tools within Project for the Web and in Viva goals. Now, if I go back out to the overall strategy view, as these things are linked, I don't have to just see them in lists or tables like I showed you with the associations in that details page. I could come in here and I could, let's just say, look at any individual item, and I can say, let me visualize, what those relationships are at any given point in time. And I'll get into the visualization area a little bit more in just a second. Now, where did those associated items come from that we wanted to align to, that we talked about, the applications and the business capabilities, et cetera? Well, that comes into the My Architecture, enterprise architecture area within OnePlan. And in here, you can actually build different portfolios of products, of business capabilities, value streams, applications, and any other things that you'd like to build portfolios, because we have the ability to create as many plan types as we want to within OnePlan. So the dimensions are how big it is. We have some folks that are only have an application portfolio for IT projects that they're aligning with certain applications. We have product-oriented folks that maybe are only doing products. But we have some people doing full SPM that are using a combination of these things across. It's really up to you what your desired outcomes and capabilities are. But let's say, for example, we go into an application here and we drill into this particular CRM application. In here, let's start with the details. And in the details, I can capture the information I want around here, like, what is the overall life cycle we're going to track around a application? What are the key characteristics of that application? Maybe what's our application vision? What's our opportunities and threats, our SWOT analysis? What's some of the prioritization and timelines we have for this? What are some of the associated objectives in the strategy area? Or what are some of the associated initiatives that are related to this application that we're working with? Once again, the same type of information that we're working from in here. We can even have work plans in here if we have things like release schedules or update paths and things like that, the schedules that we talked about. So that's all available to us from within here. Now, if I go into, and look, I looked at the associations down here. Let's just say I wanted to go into the reporting area and I wanted to visualize what that means. And I can look very quickly for this particular application focus. I can say, all right, here's the application. There's another application that we have to actually deal with before we actually can do this one. So there's a precedence relationship that sits there. But in a broader context, our runway, and let me zoom out a little bit, I can see that this application is aligned with this key result, which is aligned with this key strategy or objective, and that it is related or associated in some way with all these different projects and epics, and maybe some different value streams that we have here. And we can even see color coding on the overall health of these items, where I can take a quick look and see what might be at risk because of the fact that they're not progressing the way we would like. So once again, one easy visualization that we can look at from this application perspective. Now, if I go back to the overall project portfolio and look at it, my portfolio, and I look at this project summary, you can see, as we said, the different views that we can have of the different perspectives we'd like in here. And it can be done from a list. We can have portfolio boards that we work with from more of a Kanban perspective. And we have roadmap views that we can look at very readily. And we can look by different criteria and have these roadmaps by, in this case, it's by business unit, color coded by overall health. So once again, flexibility in the way we would look at this. In the project summary here, instead of a flat list, all that metadata that we can potentially put against each of these projects to characterize or categorize them, we can then use those for different views and roll-ups and associations. For example, if I look at this first by, say, business unit, right? I can then go in here and say, okay, what's all the things that we're working on within product development, and what does that roll up to? And look at that, as opposed to maybe what we're working with in IT, and we can group and or filter on those same criteria, okay? Very flexible way to overlay some type of metadata for different perspectives and groupings, slicings, and summarizations. We can also come in and say, oh, let's say look at this by, let's say what would be a good one? Let's look at funding source. So for example, if we're looking at this from a funding perspective, when we look at this and we want to see how many of these projects are being funded by the software budget, I can look at that very readily. That might be something that some organizations look at color of money for those types of things. Another aspect of this might be to look at this by, I don't know, executive sponsor, let's say, or project manager, right? And here I can come in and say, what are the things that we're working on for each of these different executive sponsors, and basically look and see how the things are tracking for each executive sponsor that we're doing these things. Looks like we have a lot of red in the things that we're working on for our executive sponsor, Daniel Williams, in here. So that's something that we may want to look at from an investigation and analysis perspective. And we can just as easily get rid of that overlay. Now, those are things we can overlay on a portfolio at any given point in time, and you're not limited by any ways you characterize your projects. But we also have the concept of a plan type and a plan type hierarchy. So you might have a primary hierarchy, which in this case we've done portfolios, then have programs within them, and then we have projects and epics for agile projects in this hierarchy. But you can structure this hierarchy however you like. If I came in here and I went to look at this from more of a portfolio summary perspective, according to the hierarchy, I can see that I have two major portfolios here, and those portfolios could be by business unit, by organization, other things that you might want them to be. And then I have programs within them. Now, the difference between this and the metadata slices is that these are actual entities in the system, meaning you could have those financial plans and resource plans at a program level. You can actually aggregate schedules into a master plan at a program level. Those types of things are there, and that primary hierarchy can be very powerful, which can be supplemented by slicing via the metadata that we just showed you by the grouping capabilities that we have. Now, if I go into here and I go look at, say, a project for the web project that we're aligned with, if I drill into that, we went through the idea that we have project details, right, that we can capture. We have the resource plan and the financials that we can work with. And in this resource plan, we can plan in terms of hours, percentages of allocation, or FTEs, right? Such that we can just basically do as high or low level of this as we want. But it's always keeping an eye on the overall resource loads here. So even though I'm only using Tom McPherson 25% in June here, he's showing overloaded because he's got other allocations in here that are overloading him. Now, if I was going to look at something for Tom, for example, and I was going to look for alternatives, I could actually look for a candidates list and look for good or best matches for him, where I could find other resources in this time frame that might be available. For example, Anthony Harris might be somebody that I could say, let me do a replacement of him and replace Tom up above if I wanted to, or find those resources by other criteria. So that means that I can come in here in a variety of ways and just look at the alternatives for the way I might look at that from a resource planning perspective. In the work plan itself, we're looking here and we're actually linked to a project for the web plan. And so as I look in here and I look, it's in one plan, and if I go look at the schedule work type, just like plan types in the hierarchy, we have work types within the work plan. This project for the web project, we have a bunch of tasks that came into us from project for the web. And we can tell that because it's actively linked here to project for the web. And we can demonstrate that just by showing you that it's actively linked here through this connection to this particular plan. Whoops, there we go. And it is linked to this project for the web plan, as it's synchronizing this data on a routine basis, typically hourly, people do, and have it bring that data over dynamically over into one plan so that it's available to be rolled up into the portfolio set of data. So once again, that's something that is available to us at any given point in time, and we can supplement the schedule data with things like, you could have an agile backlog if there's an agile portion of this project that isn't captured, say, in project for the web. You can have an agile backlog for that. You could also have risk logs, issues, change requests, and even capture key decisions in here. And even add your own things, like people add things in here like lessons learned and other things, all within the context of this same work plan without you having to go to different places to do those things. We talked about status reporting. That's something that becomes a natural output of the process. You just create a status report format, which can automatically populate the objective data and then allow you on a period by period basis to put in your status report narrative. And then once that's submitted, it's then capturing a status report history. So you have a record of all those, as well as being able to export these to PDF or Word or just send it out to people in the body of an email. Once again, making the status reporting process, which is highly manual for many people, a very streamlined process. Now for the team members, we talked about the My Work area and be able to look at a variety of plans that people are assigned to. So for example, I could be on a variety of different projects and plans, including this project for the web plan. Well, it looks like I've completed this task in here that's in my project for the web plan, but I have other ones that are involved here that might be backlogs or other things that I might have on other projects that I also have the ability to update right here in the same place. And I can view these things by like what project they're on. Maybe I could look at them by, what's the priority, so I can focus on what the critical things are that I need to take advantage of and work on those things, as well as maybe even when they're due, and say, what things do I got on my plate that are due across all these different plans, and take a look at what's overdue. In this case, I've got a lot of overdue tasks across a number of different projects. I can work with this in terms of a board as well, such that I can update these tasks across a board if I want to fulfill on this stuff and show completion status in that manner as well. I mentioned briefly that we do have a timesheet capability that allows you to record time against these things if that's a requirement of your organization. And that would include all your different projects, including your project for the web project, so you can record time of that and would automatically populate those things based upon the elements that you have assigned to you within that project for the web plan. From a team member perspective, to have insights, if you're being signed across a lot of different things, being able to see what's on your plate as far as easy access to the projects that you're part of, as well as highlights of insights of areas that may require your attention, including recent conversations on tasks and or plans that you are involved in, such that you're always in the loop and have availability to that information very quickly. Now, if I go back to my portfolio and I look at this from a portfolio management perspective, let's talk about the visualization capabilities. For example, if I was looking at this portfolio and I wanted to visualize at this level before I looked at it from the application or I looked at it from the strategy level, I could come in here and visualize this and say, is there any dependencies on this? There's no dependency on precedence here, but on the runway, I do have all kinds of things in here that this portfolio has different programs and then projects and epics within it, which are then related to different key results and objectives. So different views that we might have in here might be different ways to look at that. Same thing would hold true from the strategic level. If I want to look at a strategy and what it's aligned to, I can do these same visualizations from wherever I'm starting from and wherever I'm coming from. Now, lastly, I want to talk about some of the what if analysis capabilities. And if I go into a portfolio and I go look at a view that might be applicable to look at from a prioritization perspective. And in this particular case, I'm looking at the same roster of projects, but the data points I have in this view are different. For example, what are some of the associated applications? What are the associated key results that I have with these different plans? What's the prioritization score that I have? Or potentially, what ranking do I have after I force rank these things and I drag and drop them into different force rankings as I use the prioritization score as a guidepost as to what might be the most important things to do. As far as aligning these things with different strategies and things, I could say, let me filter this portfolio down and let me filter down against a key result. And let me pick one. Let me achieve product engagement of 80%. As I look at this, I can see that there's 5 plans in here that are associated with that key result. But if that's an important key result, I might be a little bit concerned that one of them is proposed and we haven't started working on it yet, and 2 of them are on hold and we're not actively working on those things. So as I'm looking at what I might be focusing on next, this might be a decent perspective as to what I might try to activate next or what I might choose to allocate resource to next, such that this decision of achieving this key result is a success factor for me as an organization, okay? Now, at any given point in time, I can just clear that filter and then I'm back to the entire portfolio as I was looking in that way. Now, let's just say I was gonna try and do a scenario and I wanted to do one that was more financial based. I could come in here and say, if I wanted to do all these projects and selected all these projects and I wanted to look at it from an FY23 budget perspective, I see here that within this period, it would take me $7.7 million when I only have a $6 million budget. So I've got some things on a selection process that I might need to do in order to make that happen. So let's say, for example, I've got a timeline and the timing, and I've got all the plans selected that are available here, that if this is what will happen if I do all these plans. So I've got these in a prioritized ranked order. So things I could do in a what if scenario model, and I'm not going to be changing any data here when I now analyze this in this what if mode. Let's just say I take the 4 lowest priority projects and I eliminate those. And I say, you know, I'm just not going to do those. You can see that my budget now and what they're required, I got down to 6.6. So I pared off $1 million almost from that. But maybe now, in lieu of just carving out projects that I'm not going to do, maybe I change the timing on, say, some proposed projects I want to do. Let's say this proposed project we want to do, it's a candidate for something we want to do, but maybe we will just want to delay that out into early part of next year. And by doing so, I freed up another $300,000 in that, and I might free up again on another proposed project. Let's say, what if we delay that out to next year as well? Now I can see that I'm within that $6 million, and now I have a scenario I might want to save as something that we can evaluate. And we can do this in an iterative fashion and save a variety of different scenarios to come up with the right result for ourselves. So once again, what if scenario modeling is part of this, but we also get even more advanced in this where we can actually do models for individual segments of the portfolio or criteria-based models on selecting which projects we want to model. For example, I might want to just look at the IT projects in a model. And in looking at that, I might come through and look at a particular model and maybe do a variety of scenarios against that. So here, ultimately, I had 114 candidate projects and plans in here, but I did a model that said, if I had a $20 million budget and I went through all the exercise I went through with you on that last one, I can see that only 80 projects make the trip if I have $20 million. And these things are the ones that I factored out. If I had a $25 million budget, for example, I did a scenario on that, and it turns out that I could actually do 13 more projects, and I have to exclude fewer projects if I could come up with another $5 million. Now I can compare those through analytics where I could say, yes, I'm spending $5 million, and yes, I have different constraints on effort and budget here, but if I could find another $5 million, I might achieve $7 million more in benefits. So it might be worth my while to invest that money and find that $5 million if I could at all do it. Now we have other things in here where we can compare, the details graphically on here, or in a list where I can compare, say, these two scenarios and look at what's in and what's out. And I can put this analysis out to an Excel export and even look at different prioritizations I did over here based upon the different scenarios. I could look at this graphically from a dashboard perspective and look at those two different scenarios and what that means from a budget and benefits perspective as I look at the comparisons around that. And then once again, traditional bubble charts, things that we actually look at in portfolio management, I can go look at something like a budget versus benefits and see high benefit, high priority, meaning this upper right is the sweet spot. I do have a bunch of projects in that upper right, but not as many as I would think or I would like maybe. And even if I look at the plans that were excluded, I can even see that I excluded a plan that was in the sweet spot. And I might want to analyze why that was. So once again, we can go through a bunch of different things and even do the visualization that we talked about in here and look at some of those different runways and things like that within the what if scenario and look at those analysis that we talked about earlier on. So just a high level overview of a lot of details of capabilities that we have here. And you don't have to access all these levels of capabilities in order to start getting incremental benefit from using OnePlan and Project for the Web. So with that, I would like to go back to the slide presentation and do a summary and a wrap up. So Microsoft is in the process of reimagining Project and Project Online. Project for the Web provides new modern project execution and scheduling capabilities. Project for the Web does not have full feature parity with Project Online at this point, and OnePlan really provides a platform that extends Project for the Web and goes even beyond the capabilities of what Project Online offered. OnePlan also adds strategic portfolio management capabilities for you to the degree that you'd like to use those, and it also integrates with other tools and solutions as needed, including Project for the Web. And OnePlan can help you by providing the services and migration support that you might need to get there. So the idea is a powerful modern solution by combining these things. We focus on portfolio management. That's our thing. We're not a general systems integrator, and Microsoft is recognized as 3 of the last 4 years as their global project and portfolio management partner of the year. We're passionate about this stuff. And you can even trial OnePlan. And the strategic portfolio management one, as I'd highly recommend you trying out, is available through oneplan.ai/solutions or Microsoft's App Source. And we're happy to help you and chaperone you through that trial. Or do a roadmap workshop to help guide you through discovery and see where you're at, what it's going to take to get you where it's going, give you some advice. So free trials, roadmap workshop, or even a personalized one-on-one demo. If you want to see more, reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai. Research us more if you like at oneplan.ai, the website. Ultimately, I'd like to thank you for the time. We really did fill up the hour today. We do believe in the power of one, bringing things together into one context for you so you're not scattered across all these different dimensions. So we bring you one interface, one experience, and one platform via OnePlan in the Microsoft Cloud. Thank you and have a great day.